A lot of times we look around and we're like, I want to declutter. I'm having a hard time getting motivated. Why am I keeping all of this stuff? Like, there's nothing positive in that message. There's no joy in that message. There's no happiness in that message. It's all about what you don't have, what has to go, what you're doing wrong. And that's not the mindset that you want to have in your home at all, period. Clutter shows up not just in the physical aspects, but it also shows up within your emotional and mental aspects of your life as scarcity and lack. A lot of times it's showing up as some sort of internal conflict that you have around letting these things go, not necessarily because of what it is that like the actual tangible item is per se, but what the story that you're telling yourself is behind it. In today's video, we're going to explore how scarcity mindset creates clutter and how these bad habits are really not about the things, but what's really going on within ourselves. And what changed the game for me when I started really thinking about my home more holistically was coming across a resource that was a book written by Michelle Vig titled The Holistic Guide to Decluttering. Blew my mind. Like, it absolutely blew my mind. I found it on Hoopla, and I'll link it in the show notes. I'm Danni, former architect turned holistic interior designer with focus on bringing more mindfulness, intention, and wellness into your homes. Welcome to day 4 of Holistic Home Updates Made Easy, where I guide you through simple but meaningful steps to begin refreshing your home's energy for the new year. You can pick this up at any time or any season your home needs a reboot, a refresh, or an update. Let's talk about it. Before I began decluttering holistically, I didn't even realize that I had scarcity mindset around certain items of clutter that I was holding on to. And I had a pretty decent practice, especially around New Year's. I would tackle a few closets, I would purge a lot of things, but throughout the year, it would all seem to build back up. I wanted to make a sustainable process that keeps going versus having this one huge event that it was exhausting. I would take like 2-3 days, submerge myself in this process, and then I would be burnt out by the end of the weekend, having to go back into my job on the following, Monday, and I wasn't feeling restored or recharged by the whole process at all. Actually, it was more draining to do it in that way for me. So when I found out about scarcity, I was able to understand where was the lack mindset that I was clinging on to. And this literally changed the vibe for me 100%. If you've been following along in this series, then you probably know by now that clutter creates stress, it creates anxiety, it creates overwhelm, and this is reflected in our homes and it reflects back to us. And so it becomes a symbiotic relationship of stress and overwhelm, and we don't want our homes to encapture this vibe because we want it to be more of a healing and grounding space. Women in particular have a different response to clutter than men do. And this is important to know because I find that my husband, my boys, they can just step over the sock in the room without picking it up. And it drives me crazy. You just walked by it, you saw it, you stepped over it. But they don't even see it in the same way we do. For women, clutter creates cortisol, the stress hormone. So when we see clutter, we're not just looking at it as oh, it's that thing on the floor. It's my sock. No, we look at it as that's something that needs to be tended to right now. That's another task that I have to do. And it kind of puts us into more of a fight or flight response because our brains are signaling oh, this is high alert, this is high response, this is something that needs tending to, this is urgent, even though it is not urgent. But to our minds, our mammalian brains, so to speak, it's oh my gosh, this really has to be tended to, and it raises our cortisol. We're not aware that this is happening, but every time we see something like that, it puts us into this state. Then we wonder why we're so overwhelmed with all the additional tasks that we have to do. So this primarily shows up for us in a few different ways. And when we get quiet with ourselves and become aware of what we're feeling in that moment and question what's going on, it shows up as usually fear, guilt, resentment, nostalgia, and lack of resources. Because those emotions, which are, classified as potentially negative, and then we want to suppress that because we don't want to feel that, and we carry it on with us for the rest of the day. It also puts us into a state of decision paralysis because then we see it. So I'm going to go back to the sock analogy. So we see the sock. Maybe the sock is too small for our growing child. So now we're faced with more tasks of, what do we do with the sock? Do we toss the sock? Do we keep the sock? Do we donate the sock? And countless decisions about what needs to be done with that sock leads to decision fatigue and avoidance. So if any of this resonates with you today, I want you to do a small actionable step. Take a moment to walk around your home and just notice where the clutter is, where it resides, where it's building up, where it's collecting, and just sit with it and ask yourself, what is the story that I'm telling to myself around this clutter, this item? And really acknowledge the emotional significance that it's having with you. And it's okay to acknowledge your feelings. If you are having trouble identifying what feelings are coming up, I have a few questions that you can ask yourself. What does this item mean or represent for me? Does the person that I want to be in 5 years need this item? And then you can put yourself in your future self, in your higher self, into the state of who you want to become. And oftentimes, your higher self will let you know whether or not you need it, and then it's easier to let go. Why is it so hard for me to let go? So after you've asked yourself these questions, I want you to give that item gratitude for bringing you this lesson, bringing you this awareness, and then release it. Go on about your day. We're not going to tackle the clutter today. And if you've been along for the ride, this is now day 4 of decluttering, and we still have not touched one item of clutter yet. And it's because we are going about this in a more mindful and intentional way that's going to bring you more lasting results, rather than to attack everything head on, and in a few months we're going to be right back to where we started, and we don't really want that. If you're still feeling a little bit stuck with this step, I want you to go back to those intentions that we set up way back in of day 1 of our holistic home updates. And are these things aligning with the intentions that you set up for your home? Let's explore some of the deeper reasons why the clutter seem more difficult to tackle. When I started doing this process, what came up for me was a lack of resources, in particular with time. And so when I stopped and paused and sat with my clutter, the story that I was telling myself is, I don't have time for this. See, I wasn't even spending time with my clutter to even look at it, to acknowledge that part. And so that then signaled, I'm overwhelmed, I'm anxious, I'm stressed, I am not managing my time, I'm procrastinating, all of these other things that I am doing by avoiding the clutter that is in the room. It's like another thing to do on the long list of things to do. The unread mail, dishes in the sink, unfinished DIY projects. I have so many of those. It's just really being overwhelmed by the current responsibilities that you have and the mindset that you don't have enough time with it. But once I acknowledged it, I began telling myself that I have all the time I need to do the things that I want to do. And instead of looking at it from a point of scarcity and lack, where I don't have enough time, I'm looking at it from a viewpoint of, I have so much time that I can dedicate 10 minutes to this clutter that is chilling on the kitchen counters right now. You see the difference? It's really like you carrying that mindset with you is not helpful to you, because every time you see it, it's reinforcing the fact that you don't have enough time. It's a constant visual reminder of the time that you think you don't have anymore. There's also the what if clutter, right? Like there's what if I need this in the future. So this is also like scarcity, like lack of resources, lack that I might not have enough money or to replace this thing, or I might need it in the future and I won't have it if I let it go. You have to come from a space that of knowing that the universe is always going to provide you with what you need. And I see this a lot come up with like electronics. There's a difference in someone holding on to like electronics because they're a collector. They might have, the original PlayStation from back in the day, or Nintendo or Atari or whatever. If you're a collector of those items, awesome. But if you're just holding on to the DVD player just in case the internet goes down and you might not be able to to watch TV, I mean, that's kind of like reinforcing that the internet is going to go down. Like you're still putting this extra fear that is unnecessary into the energetic field. And you actually might be prone to internet outages then. These things just keep compounding in a way that we're just unaware of how our subconscious is reflecting back onto us. So you want to always make sure that you're coming from a place of abundance. Another one that commonly comes up is like holding on to clothes that no longer fit, jeans that you haven't worn in years because you're still dreaming of the time that you were that single digit size. Don't worry about that. That was a previous version of you that does not have the life experience that you have today. Love yourself and love your body for where you are right now. Treat yourself for where you are right now. It reinforces the dissatisfaction of who you are now. And you're beautiful right here, right now, in this moment. Another thing that I really feel that comes up a lot is like unfinished projects, which I have myself, or investing in gym equipment that you had a goal and you didn't finish the goal. So it reinforces conflict about your ability, your goals, your purpose, your aspiration, and seeing the unused Peloton or that unfinished DIY project is reinforcing that you can't finish your goals. So either donate it, release it, or make a commitment to yourself that you're going to do it. But if you're not, then come to terms with it. It's fine. Resell the Peloton, get your money back, or at least get some of your money back so you can invest in something else that you can actually commit to. The last thing I want to talk about is sentimental items and gifts from loved ones that either don't match your vibe and you feel guilty because it came from someone that you love, but you don't want to let it go because you don't want to hurt them, or sentimental items from those who have passed on and you're struggling to let go of that item for fear of detaching from them. You might feel guilty of offending them for not keeping something that doesn't fit in your space or just doesn't make you happy. You have to work on releasing the guilt about that, and that's okay. Like, not everything matches the vibe, and 9 times out of 10 they're not even going to know that you released it to make space for something new. So like, we tell stories about ourselves of things that's going to happen in the future. Like, let's tackle that then. If it does come up, just say, oh, it didn't match my vibe, it didn't match my aesthetic. This will unlearn them and reteach them where you are in your life now. And when it comes to those sentimental items from lost loved ones, it really is unprocessed grief. And so this, I encourage you to take your time with it. There is no timeline to grieve. Have grace with yourself, be gentle with yourself, be kind with yourself, and process it in the time that makes sense for you. So today we're focusing on what's not working. In my Homebody design program, we take it a step further by taking everything that you've uncovered and intentionally bringing it together to create a space that supports your vision and your goals. I want to remind us that decluttering isn't just about letting go. It's about creating space for the things that we want to invite into our lives. This is a powerful step, so I want you to take your time with it. Awareness is where the transformation begins. And I'd love to hear in the comments what's an item or a space within your home that you're struggling with making space for. I'll see if I can help you through those steps. Thank you for joining me for day 4. I'll see you in the next video for day 5 as we continue along this journey of creating a home that feels aligned and inspired. And if you're ready to take the next step, check out the link for the Homebody Design Program in the description below. Until then, be kind to yourself and remember you're doing amazing work one step at a time.